And now, a show with inappropriate language. The Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and while I've been talking about COVID and systematic racism a lot lately, I'm not going to do that this week. What's on the top of my mind is that summer is almost over. It's so crazy that it's almost September. Time isn't supposed to go by this fast when you aren't doing shit, but it has. So I'm getting ready for homeschooling 2.0, which I dread. Last year, I taught 5th grade math. That shit was hard and created a lot of fights between me and my kid. My wife, she focused on the English stuff, and really, I think she did most of the work herself. But now we're going into 6th grade, which is a whole different animal. You have a bunch of different classes, which means a lot more for me and my wife to learn and teach. So I'm kind of nervous going into middle school. But before we go back to school, we are doing something else that I totally hate doing, a big house project. I grew up hiring people to do stuff, so not only do I not enjoy the work, I never learned to be handy either. So that's what my shitty life is all about. But my guest this week does not have a shitty life at all. He is the greatest American downhiller of all time. I'm talking about Daron Rahlves. I see Daron most years at the McShlonkey. I usually make fun of him on the microphone, and that's it to our relationship, really. But the dude is incredible. So incredible that we had to do 2 separate podcasts to capture his story. Before I get into it, I want to ask you to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to it, tell a friend about the show, and follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement. Finally, I want to ask you to support my great sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Sports, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk to Daron Rahlves.
I had a close call. I mean, not a close call, but just thought I might have had COVID. So I was quarantined for a while. And I had some crazy bacteria, foodborne illness. It just nailed me. I had all the symptoms of chills, fever, body aches. I mean, I couldn't stand up, and went to the ER and got some fluids, all these tests. And then they gave me a COVID test because I just ran my parents and a few other people camping. And shit took 8 days to get the test back.
No way.
So I was just basically just holed up and waiting, and everybody's waiting to hear word and being, pretty low pro, and my wife, kids, everything. And I talked to a buddy yesterday down in Piedmont, Oakland. They had a drive-up test. In 15 minutes, he got his results back.
We are the best testing country in the entire world. It's crazy that it took you 8 days.
Yeah, whatever. I was dealing with it, and it was 4 days before I could actually stand up and walk. It was insane. It just got crushed. And
you're in tip-top shape. You're a perfect human specimen. So to take you out, it's got to be pretty serious.
Well, yeah, it was something that definitely could probably suck up some stuff, but the fatigue level was gnarly. And that's just all the, signs pointing towards COVID, and your results back. It was negative. So, whatever.
Yeah. It's a crazy time, man. Yeah, if I had that, I would think I had it too. I think anybody who's got those symptoms immediately think they have the virus, and yeah, that sucks. But it's good that you're good.
Yeah, I mean, biggest thing though, like I said, was I wasn't really concerned about it. Whatever, I get it. But everybody else I expose, and especially my parents and some other people, that you don't want to be the one spreading it.
No, it would feel really terrible if you killed your parents.
Yeah, very good.
So with this podcast, you've done so much in your career, we're not going to be able to talk about it all, but we're going to talk about a lot of it. But I'm going to focus more on the race stuff just to let you know.
Okay.
But in looking at your career, you've won some really important races in your lifetime. I was in attendance for probably the most important race that you've ever been a part of. It's one of the few races in your career you went into as the favorite, and I'm talking about the McShlonkey. And in thinking of that event, you should have won that event the first year. You had special skis sent in from Atomic. What happened?
Yeah, that was a sweet year. That was on top of KT. Just skiers right of McShlonkey's and jumping the women's downhill. And we're all kind of just milling around, and all the shenanigans are going on up there. And it was pretty flat light, and the snow was actually pretty good. Soft snow, and it was pretty cold. And all of a sudden, just go! It just came out of nowhere. Some patroller just yelled something. And I remember Cody Townsend just taking off. And everybody else was a little behind, and I was just using him as reference because it was almost like a whiteout. And I just started bombing coming down. Like you said, I had these atomic like snow blades, and I saw him react at the bottom of the pitch, like just a big old jump up. I couldn't really see the ground. Just timing was off, and I just stuffed it and snapped like the front of the ski right at the toe piece, and did a good tumble and pop back up and try to get going. And it's not too easy skiing on one ski of those things. You put your other ski down, it's like all snap in half and stabbing it. And I was just doing 360s on the way down.
And I remember you running up the hill with a broken ski, and you did not win that year. But then the next year, you come in and you win that event, and you have a golden saucer to your credit. You may have more than one, I'm not even sure, but a huge event. And McShlonkey was an inspiration to so many people for all the right reasons. He was an amazing athlete, person, and he didn't take himself or skiing seriously. What was your relationship with him?
You know, Shane was definitely a special kind of guy and person. Just always making jokes, fun loving, having a good time. And, you know, unfortunately, we didn't really get to spend too much time together in wintertime because I was racing the World Cup and I was gone pretty much 8 months out of the year. And I had a few days, though, at home, and a standout. It was actually like a milestone week for me because I was in Tahoe, had a week off, just hammered, you know, like this storm came and just dumped. Like we normally get like those big storms and transformed the mountain. And I hooked up with Shane and Johnny Mosley. The three of us just tore up everything. And I skied stuff at Squaw that I'd never skied before. And it was like a whole nother mountain. Like my style always growing up was just going fast and working off terrain, stuff like that. And Shane was just a billy goat and taking us into like some pretty rad shit, like off of C2 and Granite Chief. And we did 2 days, just full throttle, having so much fun. Then I went over to Norway and won my first World Cup downhill, back to back, actually, 2 days in a row. And, you know, I attribute those kind of wins to just like that feeling, that vibe I had. I carried over from those days skiing with Shane and Johnny and just having a lot of fun out there. And I was basically like, you know what? I'm going to have a lot of fun out here in this field track here in Norway, but I'm going to go out there and just blast it. It was kind of like a different vibe I had. It was the first time I really focused on me. Wasn't looking at the Austrians or the Norwegians or the Swiss and what they're doing. And I was just kind of in my own little zone and in a good place. And, you know, a lot of good energy from there. But, you know, Shane and Sherry is close with my wife, Michelle. And to spend time with him is always, I mean, he's a goofball, but he's serious, you know. He came with some rad stuff and he transformed free skiing away. And actually my first McShlonkey Chinese downhill, bonsai, whatever he was calling it.
Yep.
I remember we're bottom of the tram and there's a pile of snow blades and we're all kind of like it was a small little group. This is before it really it got big, and we just grabbed one ski for the right foot, one ski for the left foot, went up the tram, and we're all like up there and Shane's kind of organizing. He's like, all right, it's kind of a little underground. Like we actually had Uncle Lee down at Dave's Deli commentating for this. Shane's like, all right, top to bottom. One rule, there are no rules, fastest one, first one on the bottom wins. And we're all getting fired up. And he's like 30 feet below us, organizing everybody on a line. And, you guys ready? And we're like yelling, yeah, and kind of pushing everybody around. And it gets getting a little fun. And then he's like, all right, 10 seconds. And then he just turns around and skates. Just gone. And we're all like, chase him, so we just started bombing. And they're like, Govey and a few of the guys, and we were just hammering. I got behind Shane. He hits his wind lip, just backpedaling and just augers in him. He's like scrambling to get up. I'm about to hit this thing. Like, I'm going to pass him here. And I did the same exact thing as he did. Hit this like wind lip and backpedaled and just full of windmills and big old Mooney and land and pop back up. And I chased him down. Like, I was like probably 20, 30 feet behind him from like the bottom of Headwall down to Dave's Deli. And I could not catch him. I could not get in this draft. And for some reason, I was looking at his skis, and his skis are all quiet and just like glide nice. And I had the craziest speed wobbles. And it was the biggest leg burn of my life. Like, I'm shooting across the line right behind Shane. And Uncle Lee was just railing me for getting worked and American downhiller. And, that's my thing.
Yep.
Speed skiing. And Shane beat me. It was just so many fun times around him. And that McShlonkey, like you said, it definitely started building it in a way of its own. And what was Sherry calling it? Like the
most important ski event in the world or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. I mean, that's why I still love skiing, because it's fun.
And I would think there's a lot more fun that goes on at the McShlonkey at the start than maybe at the Hahnenkamm, but that's a totally different story that we'll talk about. before we get into any of ski racing, you grew up in Walnut Creek, California, and there are a ton of factors that contribute to you being a pro athlete. The one that you don't control is your genetics. Your dad, he was held a world record for jumping on water skis and was a champion water skier. Did he just do that, or was there other rad shit that your dad did?
He was a beast when he was in his late teens, late 20s, and he's crazy strong. And he trained a lot too, and water skiing was his thing. He played football for the Coast Guard. He held the world record for 6 years in ski jumping. I think it's 159 feet, and this is probably 64, something like that. But he did the speed skiing, trick skiing, slalom. And back in the day, everybody's really well-rounded in what they did in sports. And nowadays it's so specialized. I don't really follow water skiing, but you don't see a jumper doing slalom or trick. They're all specialized. Same thing with snow skiing. I always liked the fact that, going back to Shane, how versatile he was. He raced, he did bumps, he did stuff in the park and just natural hits all over the mountain, and just great skier top to bottom on any natural terrain. And then took to ski basing. And so he was a well-rounded athlete on skis, on snow. But I think, just my dad, definitely always instilled in me, just hey, you know what? You got to work hard and you got to play hard. Those are, the rules, but, work comes first and play second. And you got to find the most out of yourself, make it happen. And I think that's the most rewarding thing in life. It's not the result you achieve. It's nice to win, the Hahnenkamm or Birds of Prey or Vangen, Pam McShlonkey. But, if you gave it your best effort, and going back to that day, I just wrecked right behind Cody and I didn't win. I still felt good about it because I was giving her.
How about your mom? Is she an athlete as well?
I'd say no. She was a full debutante from Texas, and she plays golf. My parents are really into fly fishing. She's great throwing the fly around. And when they were younger, say in their 30s, 40s, they did a lot of tennis and golf. And she water skied, she snow skied, she did stuff, but she wasn't a standout in anything.
She wasn't a badass like your dad?
She's still a badass
person, but not athlete.
Kids, but yeah, dad was definitely, if I got any athletic genetics, it came from him.
Okay. And when I confirmed this podcast, you had asked me if I was going to be at 10 a.m. on the dot or a few minutes early. Is that how you were raised? You're a few minutes early at all times?
That's my dad's deal for sure. Even if I'm on time, I'm late with him. So, but I don't know. For me, I have a problem trying to fit everything in to the last minute. And so I tell you, man, I'm pretty much on the nose timing. I don't like when I'm late, but I'm not going to really be showing up too often, 5 minutes before something. Okay. I got to be there at 10. It's 10, just like you,
Yeah.
Call it 10.
But if your dad is someone who's a few minutes early, it's the Bill Belichick way of life. It sounds like your parents were really demanding, or at least your dad was real demanding, a total hard ass. And from what I heard, you're always trying to prove something to him or to them and earn love. Is that even remotely accurate?
Yeah, he was hard. And I see the same stuff for me, trickling over to especially my boy, a little bit to my daughter too. If you don't see him giving the full effort, it's what are you doing? It's if you're going to do it, give it everything you got. It's grit goes a long ways, and there's so much talent out there, and there's so much talent that's not completely utilized. And I was in the same situation on the U.S. ski team where I had buddies of mine, teammates of mine that were better than me, but I just outworked them. And I think that's kind of what I got from my dad. He instilled that into me. And it was not fun to be around when I had a bad race, either ski racing or jet skiing or something like that. He'd just chew me out. But he'd be more what are you doing? You screwed this up, that up. And I wasn't trying to gain more love or acceptance from him. I just felt it kind of started it settled in on me in a way where I took that personally, where I had to he's a wake up call, well, you got to do this. And my friends would get more kind of worked up on how my dad would rail me a little bit, then it affected me.
Well, I would think all of those friends didn't go half as far as you did. And while sometimes that can suck being a kid, it probably lights a fire under your ass and makes shit happen for you. So you can look back at it now at the times that might have sucked when your dad was kind of pissed at you for not trying as hard as you could have been. But you realize now that I would never be where I am today if my dad wasn't like that to me back then.
Exactly. And it's kind of a harsh way to do it sometimes. And it's definitely this day and age, it's not what you're supposed to do. But I still feel like, old school is a good way to learn. You got to be held accountable. And it's just like, you don't get praise unless you get the results or at least you gave your best. And, I remember like at Alpine Meadows and Miley comes down from a GS run and she had a good run going, and she got a little late behind and just like completely just blew the last like 5 turns and lost some time there. And I don't even know what result. I mean, she wasn't even that far out, but I was like, Miley, it's just like, man, you had that going, but those last few turns, you completely like were behind it. You just lost a lot of time, and for next run, like anticipate a little more, look ahead. And I had a parent come up. I don't know exact words I said, but they weren't like that bad. It was more like along that lines. I had a parent come to me like, don't be so harsh on your daughter. I'm like, really? I'm not going to give her a pat on the back just for participating. And she does a great job. I'm going to let her know if there's ways she can improve and get better. I'm going to let her know. And that's kind of how I grew up. I mean, I'm on the Far West skiing board, and we have talks about results and like participation. Yeah, it's great to include everybody and get everybody like, excited for it. But should we give awards to top 15? I'm always like, no, let's give awards for sure top 3 and top 5. They got to earn it. And that makes them feel better, those top few racers. But if you give everybody a reward for just showing up, like where's that like digging deep mentality and really like laying a line and having that really good feeling of accomplishing something,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it's a totally different way than you and I grew up. But the way you grew up, it was like you had 2 different lives. You had winter, which was all skiing, and then summer was like moto, golf, surfing, tennis, which makes me think 2 different things. First, they're all individual sports. Was there ever any team sports in your life?
Soccer, that was it. I played like through grade school and halfway into high school.
I hear you're one of those guys that whenever you put a little bit of effort into something, and I don't think there is a little bit of effort in your vocabulary, it's a lot of effort, but whenever you put effort into something, you get really good at it. Was that the case with soccer as well?
I wouldn't say I was really good, but I was like one of the top players on every team I was on. And I didn't have like the footwork skills, all that stuff, but I had like the hustle. And that's kind of is what I've always had. And I consider myself more of a hustler, scrappy, like a grinder, instead of just like having really good like touch and flow and all that. And I had to work on that quite a bit in skiing. Like now I race a lot of off-road moto. And this year, I mean, we obviously haven't had any races because it's usually like a winter, spring, early summer series, which I catch like maybe 1 or 2 events in like May and June. And then it's a summer off and that's more for the fall. But it's a tough grind. It's a mental grind, but physically it's just so taxing. But that's what I love. When everybody's fresh and on fire, like, the first half of these off-road races, like I'm trying to keep up. But then the next half is where I start like just coming to my own and just start picking guys off and making passes. And it's because of one, physical conditioning, but just like I keep going. I think that's what's always helped me in ski racing. I trained where I could go 100% start to finish. In the last, like, say, 4 years of my career, I was really like in great shape and I wasn't holding back anywhere. Where other guys were trying to save something. And I was almost like that early in my career. I need to save a little bit on the top so I have like the strength to like really push to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But I get to the point where I could just go 100% all out physically, just be smart on tactics. And I was winning bottom splits like a lot because I still had more in the tank, or I wasn't willing to give in when I felt really taxed, legs and lungs, and just kept going. But I think that's like my strongest attribute in anything. And I will put work into something to get better at it. But I wouldn't say it's like all of a sudden, like I put a little time and I get these crazy like natural skills that come out.
I mean, it seems like in those sports, in any sport that is a whole shot, you have just like an uncanny knack of figuring that out. Although it took you a little while in ski or cross, maybe it just seems like you're really good at that. But when I was looking at your life, I said there was 2 things that it made me think of, the sports being individual sports. But then another thing, growing up in Walnut Creek and doing the sports that you were doing, they're all sports that you really need money to be a part of, I feel like, other than soccer. You come from a family full of wealth, I believe, which is an awesome thing. I think it's Rahlves and Rahlves. Your grandfather started a development company. He developed neighborhoods. Your dad turned that into commercial. And was it a charmed life? Did you grow up like rich?
I wouldn't say rich. We had a lot of opportunity. For some reason, I don't know how it started, but I really appreciate what I had. I'd get something, I'd clean it, I'd take good care of it, really protective of like what I had. And I'm not really sure why. And that's one thing I try and, really instill in our kids too. Just you have something, you take care of it. I mean, I remember like other families, and you tend to hang out around similar families, right? I mean, we had a house on Clear Lake and we had a boat. We got a little older, we got jet skis, kind of like our bikes, so we could rip around the lake and hang with a pack of buddies. And then I started getting a jet ski racing, and my dad basically provided me with the best equipment I could get. That was a huge part of my success. I didn't have janky motors built that would like blow up, and some guys did, try and get all they could out of it. And they're right there, like battling with me, and all of a sudden, bam, the motor goes and I'm still going. My dad like found a good motor builder, and those guys are probably, a little more expensive to put to work. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. I had a lot of opportunities. I mean, my parents met in Aspen. My dad, he worked his butt off, in construction with, like you said, developing residential like neighborhoods in Mount Diablo area, just north of Mount Diablo, called Dana Hills, and then got into commercial real estate and did really well there, and kind of moved the business from California to Nevada and Arizona. And my sister's been doing a phenomenal job running the whole show and in the business there. But we were provided with a lot of stuff, good quality equipment. And yeah, like you said, the spendy stuff with skiing and jet skiing, just the amount of money it took to travel and have the right equipment. And you don't have one jet ski, you got like three. You got a practice mod, you got a race mod, and you have like another like class, like a 440 Super Stock. It was a pretty big commitment, on my parents' part.
Now it's time for me to take a sponsor break. And I love Stanley. They have been around for over 100 years, and they have always stood behind their products because they're the best. I'm not just saying that. I use the water bottles and pint glasses daily, and they really do keep things hotter and colder for longer than the competition. In my opinion, at least an hour longer. Stanley has supported the show for a while, and I want to keep it that way. So I'm asking for your help. What I want you to do is use my code with Stanley to save 30% on the best products on the market. What you need to do is head on over to stanley-pmi.com and go shopping. They have so many products over there, and hopefully I'll have one of everything at some point in my life. But you need to go shopping over there. You enter the code DRINKFAST, that's all one word, at checkout. You're going to get 30% off your Stanley stuff, and it helps the podcast as well. So thank you very much for that. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon, another brand that I love. And I know I said it about Stanley and I'm saying it about 10 Barrel, and both of those things are true. With 10 Barrel, they support so many different things in ski, snowboard, and bike that when I went to the store before they even sponsored the podcast, I would buy 10 Barrel just because of that. And then when they started sponsoring me, I realized exactly how much they actually do for action sports. They have an A-list team of athletes across ski, snowboard, and bike. They have a big money event series in their Hella Big Air events, and they give back money to the Surfrider Foundation and protect our winners. They do so much, and they have a beer for everyone. I find myself drinking a lot of Profuse Juice, a hazy IPA. Next time you're at the store, I encourage you to pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel and support the beer that supports the active mountain lifestyle more than anyone, the 10 Barrel Brewery. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. I have a connection in the world of jet skis, and it sounds like there was a time when your dad and your top rival's dad, I think his name was Robbie Myers, they were like betting on which kid would be the champion. And you guys had custom boats that were faster than all the factory rides, and it was like a competition between dads and kids. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. My dad was really competitive. He had a 650 also that was built up all modded out, and he'd want to go out and race the other dads, and they had little drag races. But I kind of felt that people kind of made that a little bit more than it was. I mean, the Meyers, they came from like boat racing and water ski racing, and Robbie, a couple years older than me, he was killer on a jet ski, and he kind of like helped kind of bring me along. And I started being competitive with him, and it was like a little more separation. It got to the point where it was almost like, I could see that, my dad wanted to, it's like a factory team, whatever, like you're going to do anything you can to beat the other factory team, like Atomic and Head. They're going hard. They're trying to get the best athletes, and they feel good when they come out on top, and they'll let you know about it. And that's how my dad was with the Meyers. Bill Meier. And I've always thrived off competition. And I've always felt like I've gotten more out of myself when something's on the line. I still love to go up on the race hill and jump in with some of the FIS kids at Sugar Bowl and do some timed, training. And I'm trying to bring it out, and if I get beat, geez, even the lift ops know, they hear about it. So it's like a little buzz. So I'm coming out the next day. All right, I better be a little more on it. And I want to train again with you guys. Like, let's go. And then try and get back in there and get the fastest time. And it's fun, to still do that, but it's a motivator. And to me, I've always held those competitive vibes. And I think now things have changed a little bit more, like with all the backcountry skiing I'm doing. I'm just kind of going out there for that like ultimate feeling, really, but it's a competition with myself in a way. Like, I don't want to just ski something mellow. I want to have something a little dicey and look for great terrain and do something a little different. And when there's higher stakes, it feels better to pull something off.
Okay. And I'm going to just ask a couple jet ski questions because we started talking about it. The other wrinkle to the Meier story is, were you dating his sister and had to break up with her because of the rivalry?
Yeah, Tiffany Meier, she was pretty much the hottest one out there on the tour. And she was around quite a bit, just supporting the family and everything. And she was like 4 years older than me. And I was like the only one that wouldn't look at her. She was telling me after once we started dating, she's like, I was like 19, she's 23. And she's like, you know what, on the beach, on the line, getting ready to go, all the other guys are checking me out. And you were the only one not even paying attention to me. And I'm like, and one was a play on her, but it was also just like I was serious about what I was doing. And she kind of liked that. And, we dated for a little while and things were going good. But then my parents, they go off and go up to Canada, go heli skiing. My dad would go with his buddies, and my grandfather. And then once in a while, like the wives would come or the girlfriends would come. And Tiffany was like, you know what? I read this conversation. She's like, don't ever think you're going to be taken off to go heli skiing, and leave me at home with the kids. I'm like, what? Kids? Like, you're telling me I can't go out and like ski and leave you at home and do something I want to do? And that was pretty much the final straw. I was just like, I'm already getting like at 19 told what I can't do in life. And she's already talking about like a family and everything. I was like, whoa, like this is it. So I ended up breaking up with her. And then she went out and just started flaunting it right in front of me with some other, guy that was a jet skier and trying to lay it on me a little bit too, because we're both kind of hurting away. But that was kind of the end of it. But it was more like what she was telling me I couldn't do. And I'm like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you win the 92 AM jet ski title. You win the 93 expert class title. So you're a badass in the jet ski world. And I don't even know why I'm saying that, but I'm just throwing it out there. But we're going to get back to your skiing career. And at 6, I think you start racing NASTAR. And we're about the same age. And while you have accomplished much more than I have in your skiing, I started with NASTAR as well. And I don't know if I was 6, but I do remember getting a little bronze pin or something like that and thinking that was cool. Do you get gold on your first race? And is that how you find like the love of speed?
Mike, you're right. Like NASTAR was like the way I started ski racing. I'm still hold like true to those roots and support to this day, and actually do some pace setting every year in the Midwest and here in Tahoe and Colorado. And so it's fun for me to see that program still exist. But I had a string of medals my mom made, these like little felt ribbons, and I had all these NASTAR pins on them. I had a lot of bronze medals at the beginning. So I started right there too, man, at the bottom and worked my way up. But it was a family thing. It was really cool. Like we actually started skiing in Aspen. My parents met there, so they wanted to keep going back. It was like a great, like kind of Christmas vacation up until I was 7 years old. We would go from, like fly out of Oakland and go to Aspen and then spend like 10 days there and come back. And then when I was 7, we got a house in Alpine Meadows and we started kind of like changing it up, driving from the Bay Area up to Alpine. And actually my first ever day skiing was at Squaw, but Aspen was like the big kind of like trip every year we did and just to learn how to ski. But NASTAR really kicked it off, and we would come up as a family. The whole family would race on Saturday morning. And then I'd go off and go with the team with my sister after that. And parents would be cruising around with their friends and my grandparents. And then we'd, link up for lunch or something. And then at the end of the day, and it's crazy to think about those memories and how things started. And it started with a big appreciation. I remember my mom and dad just bringing like Ritz crackers and salami and cheese and some drinks. And we'd get to the top of the mountain and just like sit there and look at the lake and the other mountains around and just like have lunch. It was really cool to be outdoors. on those really nice sunny days, just have those moments. And I do a lot of different ski events now and go to Vail, go to Deer Valley, and it's crazy. You go to lunch and people are sitting at lunch with their families for like an hour and a half. We just go up and get a quick snack, a sandwich or cheese and crackers, and we're skiing again. It was about being outside and about skiing. It wasn't about all the other frills.
Yeah. So you're put into a race program right away, and it's the USSA Far West Division. There's a shit ton of talent as you're in the Tahoe area. And the thing is, you don't live at the mountain. So what is life like for you? Is it school all week, and then you're in the car 4 hours on Friday, ski all weekend, and then 4 hours home on Sunday night?
Yeah, that was kind of the craziness about it. Like, and it lasted 5 years. We were just weekend warriors, and you know how it is. It's like just chain control, and you got some snow on the road. There's like a 4-hour ride that would turn into 9 hours sometimes. And my sister and I, Shannon, were like battling a little bit in the back seat. My dad would light up on us, and it was not fun, And got to the point where like, all right, he's like, I'm done with driving to Tahoe. We're not going to do that anymore. And we're like, oh, what? Like, really? Like, it's just, we're going to lose all the ski. He's like, no, we're going to move up there. And we're like, what? Yeah. So in 7th grade, I came to Tahoe, and that was like, ski a couple afternoons. You're up there, obviously every weekend. And so about that, like 12 years old, 13, we were in Tahoe the full time. And then it wasn't really working out with school and traveling. I'd get all my work done, and I'd be on a little ski trip for a week, missed a week of class, and they'd dock me like half a grade because of attendance.
You're already traveling to race?
Yeah, like at 12 years old.
Okay.
It was for championships. The one time you kind of leave the area. In North Tahoe Junior High, where I was going to school, like, it wasn't very accommodating for taking a little time off. For 8th grade, went to Olympic Valley School, Squaw Valley Academy. The reason I went there was because Tony Stontiner was a senior there, and I was going into 8th grade. Kevin McEnany and I, like another local kid, we were in the same program, and we never saw Tony. He was always gone, traveling, racing. But it was like a program we thought we were going to get a lot out of, and it turned out to be us going to school OVS and then going back to the squaw ski team because the organization wasn't quite there, with OVS. And then I had a coach at squaw. I'm getting more competitive. Practically every race I was top 3.
Okay.
Especially GS was my stronger event. Slalom, I was kind of in there, but things are kind of going well. And I had a coach like, hey, if you really want to like pursue the ski racing, you're into it and want to be thrown in the mix of the fast kids, like the East Coast is where it's at. And there's a bunch of ski racing academies that have been around since the early 70s, and maybe take a look at those. And I went back to Vermont with my mom that spring and checked out Stratton, Burke, and GMVS, and end up going that route to Green Mountain Valley School. And that's, McShlonkey's up at Burke, and all these other guys like AJ Kitt, one of the best American downhillers, the era before me. He's going to GMVS or went to GMVS. Doug Lewis went to GMVS, bronze medalist in downhill in Bormio. And there's this good tradition, it's like, hey, they're doing something right. They're producing ski racers, and I want to see how far I can go. That was how the big move happened from Bay Area, Tahoe, then back to Vermont.
Yeah, it's weird because first the family moves to Tahoe to give you guys the opportunity to ski a lot more, which is amazing. And then you, being a 13-year-old kid with a one-track mind about ski racing, you come up with the idea with a coach to decide to go back east and go to a school. You pitch this to your parents, and it seems like if you're going to be doing that, you are mature beyond your years. If you think like, I need to go there to get better, because most 13-year-olds aren't thinking about things like that. Were you ever a normal kid?
Normal? What's normal, right? Yeah, the new normal. I didn't really have aspirations of being the best ski racer or Olympics or anything. I just love going fast, and I wanted to be in a program where I could get better. Just to have like small steps, it seemed like, with goals and all that. And I never like watched ski racing on TV. It was never like, oh, I want to be one of those guys. But it was more, this is fun. How far can I go with it? And it was a tough go my first year over there, like on my own in 9th grade, 14 years old. And
you're probably a little dude too.
I was so small, man. There was one other kid in our freshman class. We were both under 100 pounds and under 5 feet. Arn and I, we had a competition to see if we could grow up to 5 feet and get over 100 pounds, I ended up getting them by a week, like in January or something. But we were just the little runts and just getting worked by the seniors and older kids. But for some reason, like Arn, he was a little slower than me. So he was the one always getting caught. Yeah. I remember this one time they were chasing us around and we had this nice like gym, tennis court inside, and school's done. We get chased around and I end up hiding and Arn gets caught. They kind of laugh, the guys that did this to him, and take off. I hear him kind of yelling after a while, for me. I come back and he's strung up by his underwear on the speed bag hook. And I'm like trying to get like a step, lift him up off that thing. I'm like, it's not going to happen. Hold on, just like jumped up, grabbed him and snap, like throw him down. And he had the always wedgie, but this has always happened to be him. He was always like a tad slower and always getting snagged before me.
So you're lucky to have him to get the brunt of the punishment there?
Yeah, it's like getting chased by a bear, It's like you just got to be not the slowest one running away.
And is it one of those Northeastern boarding schools that it's famous for like dudes always being naked and not giving a fuck pretty much?
Oh, that was all Burke, man. Yeah, the stories that came around, and I mean, they were true. Like rounding up a group of guys, do just like a circle jerk and see who can like throw on the saltine cracker at the ski lodge.
Yeah.
I never got into that kind of like those shenanigans, but those guys, they were a little more wild there. GMVS wasn't Burke. Burke was like, had a little more of that going on.
Okay. And one thing you do get there that you don't get in Tahoe is bulletproof ice. When you first start skiing that, is that a challenge for you? Because I'm sure that skiing on that ice trains you for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, it was a game changer for me, like in my career, but it was tough to like make the transition. I mean, I remember out here far west, our skis were in the locker like all week. My dad would bring them out, use like a wine cork to like rub some wax on, buff it in, and use a brush and scrape it out, and maybe take a stone on the edges. I had to learn how to like tune skis. I got scars all over my thumbs right now to this day from my first year of just slicing open my hands. And we got to the point where we had to like bust a file out and put an edge on the skis like every 3 runs on the training hill. He was like, "Oh, storm's coming." Like, "Oh yeah, like storm in Tahoe. I love it." Like powder skiing, like storm would come in Vermont and it would rain and then it would get cold. And you'd have like this sheet of ice, that you're skiing on. And it was not fun. You could look down, you could see the grass on our training hill.
Through the ice?
8 inches of ice, right?
Yeah.
It was a different deal. I grew up running ruts and it was definitely a wake-up call. And that's where all the fast guys were. Like a couple guys that like were standouts are just ahead of me, like Eric Schlopey and the Pucketts. And those guys made the U.S. ski team right in front of me. And it was competitive out there. And there's a lot of guys at my age that made the U.S. team like a year or two before I did. That all came from the East Coast. And you learn quick. You adapt or you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
Out there with the competition and the skiing style. And like I said, I went from like top 3, winning a bunch of races in the far west, to I couldn't even make junior nationals the first year in Vermont, which is like top 25. I couldn't even make top 25. That was pretty devastating. And the next year, a little bit better, not that great. But by my senior year, that's when I started putting wins down in NORAMs and winning the NORAM title in Super G and right there in GS. It took a couple of years to figure out.
Yeah, so you've got that going on. You're still racing the jet skis in the summertime, so you've got that Super G title. Jet skis are pretty serious. We talked about them a little bit. The one thing with jet skiing is you get to a point in your life, maybe 1993, where you have this title in jet skiing in the expert class, and then you're on track to head towards the U.S. ski team, although that's not a guaranteed thing yet. First, is there any thought of college, or is it all about making a career out of the passions that you have?
That was a crossroads, Mike. I had college lined up. I pretty much put all my eggs in one basket. I wanted to ski. If I was going to make the national team, ski for CU at Boulder. I didn't want to be back east anymore and go to a place like UVM, Dartmouth. I was like, I want to go west. And CU has a really strong team. This guy, Richard Rokos, he's been running the program. He's still running, I think. But yeah, I want to be part of like a strong team, win NCAA champs. But then I was like, like I might have a chance of making the U.S. ski team. So I deferred a year and took a year off to just focus all on ski racing. And I was fast in Super G and GS. I didn't have really any interest in slalom at that point. I kind of started moving away from that event. And the ski team was looking for 3 event skiers. And I wasn't named the team, although I was better than a lot of those guys in Super G and GS. And that year, 93, I won expert world title and was like, okay, I could go pro now, which is pretty rad. I like to go mix up with the best guys. And the national tour back then was crazy. It was awesome. I mean, you go around the U.S. and you're going all these 10 different stops around the U.S. and races the Bud Jet Ski National Tour. And I was like, I put so much more of my life and effort into ski racing. And it was that year where I finally was named to the U.S. ski team. So it was like a no-brainer. I just walked away from jet skiing and went all into ski racing. And it was different. I mean, you had to train differently. You had to be strong with endurance, jet skiing, and the lighter you were, the faster you were, because less load on the boat.
Yep.
But for ski racing, I was still small, and I needed to like put on weight, get stronger for like a minute and a half push, as hard as I can go. Plus ski camps, and you're named to the team. You got to show commitment. You can't be skipping out, on a full summer of training and on snow time to like go jet ski.
Yeah, and you don't half-ass anything.
Yeah, to me, it's like I wasn't about getting the jacket or just being on the team. Like, okay, this is my next step. Now I could, have a chance to race in World Cup. And I had my own spot. If you win the NORAM title in any discipline, mine was Super G. I have a Super G spot in World Cup the following year. So I was like, man, I got a chance now to ski with the big boys and try and figure this out and make it happen. So that was exciting, just to be named to the U.S. national team and have a World Cup spot, biggest stage for ski racing.
But the one thing that separates you from probably everyone else on the U.S. ski team, like you said, is your size. You're like 5'9" in a world of 6-foot+ guys. Those dudes can generate more speed in the flats. And what strategies did you need to figure out and employ to keep you competitive?
I wasn't really focused on downhill at that point. I was more sticking with giant slalom and Super G. And for me, it was like really trying to analyze and pick apart the runs, like where I could trim line down, like how to go faster in certain sections, like take a little more risk, be better with aerodynamics. And I started like trying to like get better at gliding. Yeah, like you said, a bigger guy, more freight is going to go faster in a gliding section than someone smaller. It's just physics. But I was like, you know what? This is my weakest point, but I'm going to get on a test track. I'm going to work on my gliding. I'm going to look at like who's fast. And later in my career, like with another local ripper, Marco Sullivan, he had such a good touch and such good skills gliding. I watched him a lot. Like, what can I take from him to get better? What can I take from some of these like Euros that are really good gliding, or like AJ Kitt? Like, what did he do? And talk to a few of these guys too that would like give me anything, but really try and like work on my weakness a little bit and then really work on my strengths and try and separate myself from others. And that's where I was able to make the gains, was trimming off line and fighting for more aerodynamics and wind tunnel for testing equipment and then our own positions. But just going down the road, stick your arm out going like 70, 80 miles an hour. In downhill racing, the average is around 65 and you're in the 80s, quite a few times on the World Cup. And even going at 70, you could just put your arm out the window and just change the angle a little bit, your wrist, and you can feel the different pull.
Yeah.
And it's still controlled. Like you're getting yanked back pretty hard with just your arm at 70. Think about when you open your arms up, your chest is exposed, you're going 70 or 80 miles an hour and how much drag that is. I'd always play around with that and always kind of like had that in my mind about when I was racing. Like so many guys come in a section, it's a little sketchier and put the air brake on, arms out, standing up. And to me, I was always trying to pin it. And those are kind of the spots where I can make up time.
So air brake's never an option for you.
I never wanted to be there, but I was always trying to fight to touch my hands together in front of me or get my hands out straight in front and be compact and small. And I think that's one place was an advantage with my size is I had less surface area. You look at a guy like Bryce Bennett.
He's a monster.
He is a monster. He's got a lot of surface area, his chest and his midsection and his arms to like slow him down. So he's really got to be focused on aerodynamics in certain sections.
Now it's time for my final sponsor break. And Peter Glenn Ski and Sports is having a huge Burton restock event Thursday, August 13th at all Peter Glenn stores and at peterglenn.com. Burton's sold-out step-on boots and bindings are back. And if you're like me, you remember all the subpar step-in binding systems of the 90s. The concepts were amazing, but the products just didn't perform. Fast forward 20 years, and Burton has dialed the system in with a simple locking security system, universal compatibility for any board, and instant connection and release. I can't wait to try mine this winter, and you can get yours starting this Thursday. They will sell out, so head on over to peterglenn.com to find out all about the product and the restock event. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Yeah. So that first season that you're on the World Cup, I think it's 1994, you're young, and are you like a rock star traveling the world, or are you more of a deer in headlights that first year?
The trenches, man, the Bush League, it's deer in the headlights. I was trying to learn, and I had some pretty good points with the Super G NORAM results. I was like in the low 30s, which was like pretty sweet. So I was kind of like just outside the top group, and you're exposed to all these top guys you've always been watching on video, and it took a while. I made a team in 93, 94. In 95, my second year on World Cup, I scored World Cup points my first year. Second year, I got fourth in Super G World Cup in Norway.
And you're sick at that event.
Yeah, I was sick. I was in Aspen. I won some NORAM races. They're like, bring them over to Norway right away. Like, put them in the Super G race. Like, when you're hot, you got to take every advantage you have. And I flew right over there. I was buckling my boots. My head would kind of clog up. My ears would plug up. Like, I couldn't breathe that well. I'm like, I'm not feeling good. But in a way, I think it was awesome because I had no expectations. I'm like, I'm feeling like crap. I'm just going to go out there and ski as well as I can and push with whatever I got. And had a sweet run and came down fourth. Kyle Rasmussen, another guy on the U.S. ski team, he was third. And then fifth was Gunther Mader. And Gunther Mader was, if there's anyone I'd pick out, like who I followed through my high school career, was Mader because of his style. He was downhill or Super GS. He actually did slalom too, but he had good style. It seemed like a great guy and just wild at times, on the edge. He's fast. And I ended up beating him. I was just like, no way. Like some guy I've been looking at for like the last 8 years, like just as one of the top guys. I just ended up besting him here today. And like it showed me like, okay, I belong in this group. And I had a number of top 10s from 95 to 99 and went to the Olympics in 98, got 7th in Super G. But I just didn't have that like next step, and it took till 2000 to win one. And then things just started kind of like happening at that point. And once you know you belong, that's a whole nother advantage,
Confidence wise?
If you put the work in, you know you could do it. And my buddy Zach Chris, which I'm still great friends with today, like he and I were on the team together, and he was the first guy I called up after I won. Like had a chance to kind of settle down through all the media and the press and U.S. ski team stuff. It was crazy. Like I had no idea what it was like winning a World Cup till then, with the obligations and how much people want a piece of you. And finally, like it was like 10 o'clock at night, and just like in my room, settling down. Like I got to call Zach. Called him up, and I have a race the next day too. I'm trying to just wind down, and we start talking and laughing, and so stoked on the win. And he's like, "Man, you've already done it. You're already the best in the world. Just go out there and do it again. Do nothing different. Have fun and go kill it tomorrow." And went out there and won again. And I think that second win was as close to perfect, like best feeling I ever had on skis in a race. Like I had one little bobble where I opened up a little bit, but otherwise like just railing turns, the flow was there, just accelerating everything. And I took that fun feeling I had skiing in Tahoe into like that race mode, and things are just clicking. It was so fun. And to this day, that was like the biggest breakthrough for me, just knowing that, okay, I got it. I just got put together. And that was my first year on Atomic. I was on Rossi before that. And the funny thing is, this guy, Daniel Monet, we call him Daniel No Monet. He's a French guy, and he was running the U.S. Rossi race program. And we had a meeting at U.S. Nationals in Park City prior to that season. My contract was up. He's like, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do with your career? You haven't won yet. You've been fourth in some top 10s. What do you want to do? I'm like, I want to race downhill, racing downhill. And he's like, shaking his head. He's like, you're crazy. You have no chance. You have no chance to be competitive in downhill. Stick with your GS and Super G. I'm like, well, I want to do those too. I'm going to still race GS and Super G, but downhill is the ultimate, man. It's the ultimate thrill. It looks the most fun, and I want to start racing that. He's like, nope. So I had a brand that wasn't even supporting me with what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it sucks.
And I had an agent. I'm like, okay, reach out to Atomic. I mean, they're the leading brand on the World Cup for speed. Maybe we can like work something out, like test some skis. And I went to Switzerland with Rossi and tested like 8 to 10 pairs of different downhill skis a day and Super Gs. And they're hustling, like working super hard. I was the second best skier in the world on Rossi at that point in speed. And they're throwing everything at me. And they had one ski that was kind of control. They wanted to just throw it in the mix. And it was a white top sheet, but it was an atomic ski. And I was fastest on that ski, like every time it came out.
Huh.
And I guarantee they weren't prepping that atomic like they're prepping all those other Rossis, right? I mean, why would they? But they wanted to get some feedback and see the difference. I'm like, this ski is insane. It's so smooth. It like accelerates. It allows me to be more confident, do what I want to do on it, and go for like a tighter entry, these lines. And it just holds, like, make a ski like this. Then came the Mammoth 10 days later, and Rossi sent out all these other new skis. And there's like a straight up Atomic and Rossi test. Atomic just sent some skis out. My ski tech buffed them out. And in 3 turns, I felt like I'm going Atomic route. Those Super D skis are so good. But I still had to do like a 5-day test and give it a legitimate test. And I was actually faster and felt more comfortable and confident on the Atomic. So went with that. And it was hard on my ski tech because he was a Rossi guy. He worked with AJ Kitt, Potavinsky, with me, with the brand for like 20 plus years. You know, it's like family. You build loyalty and trust and you get to know everybody. And a lot of those ski techs tend to stay with the same factory or ski brand. And I made him switch over and he was not happy.
I mean, it sounds like if that dude at Rossi who told you that you couldn't be a downhiller didn't say that, you could have been stuck on Rossi for the rest of your career and the skis might not have been as good. And you might not have been the Daron Rahlves that everybody knows because in 99, you changed sponsors. And then 2000, like you said, that's the trip when you ski with Shane and Johnny. Everything kind of calms down in your head. You get to the event. You're clear-headed. You have no expectations. You're always the underdog, and you're the underdog in this one again. And you win, and that's the change of your career, is getting on a different pair of skis really creates Daron Rahlves, it seems like, because you were probably almost as good as you were when you were on Rossi skis, and then you switch skis and you know in 3 turns that the Atomics are better.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I had no idea equipment would feel that different. Plus, I was like, damn, I could be faster on these. Like, this is what I need. And I was getting in the gate in my career just knowing I had the best equipment on my feet. And it came down to me. When you have doubts, like, like the setup's not right, or boots or skis, or just, something's not like clicking, that's in your head. I could bring out your best performance. But for me, like, I was getting in the gate just knowing that I had what I needed to win on. So that was great. And Atomic was like, well, we're not going to match your Rossi contract, and we can't pay you that much because we got all these other good guys on there, but we'll do a good incentive bonus. I'm like, that's all I want. I don't care about like money up front. I want stuff I can win on, and then the rest will happen. And in that year, I win 2 races. It was insane. And I get to U.S. Nationals in Jackson Hole, and I see Danielle from Rossignol, and it was kind of a little awkward moment, but he's like, man, they congratulate me and everything. And I just had to throw it back at him like, yeah, a little surprised it was even a downhill, huh? And he's just like, made this little facial expression I'll never forget. Just like, you got me there. And I'm like, I just want to thank you for getting me where I did get to in my career with Rossi. And it was just time for a change. And he's like, well, you made a good move. Like, you kind of like sucked it up a little bit, and that was that. But with Atomic, it's been incredible. Like, I mean, from racing to like when I finished ski racing, I want to stop at the top of my career and get into like some filming, some big mountain stuff. And it was a transition where Atomic was like, okay, let's make some badass free ski boards. And I was involved with that Atlas, Atomic Atlas. Like, that was my ski that I helped develop with them. And then it went into, now I'm getting into backcountry. And Atomic's like, we want to get into backcountry, so we work on the shift binding and all the other skis. And it's been a great transition. I've tried to reinvent myself in little ways, to adapt and like do different things in the sport where I could keep it going. To have a brand that's been on the same kind of like timeline as me, it's just matched up really, really well. And I bleed Atomic. I've had chances to go to different brands to get paid more, but I like where I'm at, and it becomes like family. And I think loyalty is a great thing in building relationships. So I'm still a sponsored athlete by Atomic at 47 years old.
That's crazy.
Nuts.
You were on them when they weren't cool, and then they became cool. So you got to be on that full circle, because in the early 2000s, there was nothing cool about the Atomic brand unless you were a racer. And I don't know the year Jordan Judd got there, but I look at him as a dude that made a huge impact in the brand and just making it cool again. You got to be on it throughout that whole time, which is awesome. But what's also awesome is skiing in Europe, and it's so different than in the US, where here you might as well be a box lacrosse player. No one knows who you are. But when you win races in Europe, it's a much bigger deal. You're an entity. When you're walking around cities in Europe, do people recognize you and know that you're Daron Rahlves?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's different.
That's cool.
I mean, I got more attention in my hometown around Tahoe for winning X Games I did for any other World Cup race, which to me was like 10 times bigger. Go to Europe, it's different, man. It's on TV all the time. They're doing specials like 2 days out for a race, like different teams training and who's hot right there and catching up and the personalities, interviews. And there's like nighttime TV of like ski racers sitting around a round table talking about old stories, the old guys and what's new now. And it's insane, especially Kitzbühel during the Hahnenkamm race, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there's like TV programming on their ORF, which is like NBC over here for us, of like ski racing and highlighting all the current athletes, the old guys, and people just know it so well. So I didn't want to go back to the Hahnenkamm after I ski raced. It's just, to me, it was so special and just hurt not to be back there and race. And 7 years go by after I finished ski racing, and Powder Magazine, I wanted to do a feature article on the Hahnenkamm, and they called me up like, hey, this is what our plans are. We're going to do a huge spread in the magazine, and we want to have all the, inside information. Can you help us out? Like, get things lined up, and we would love for you to go with us out there, and show us around. And like, not interested, but I'll tell you, it's the raddest race there is for ski racing, and you guys got to go. And it was like 2 or 3 calls a day. They were trying to pester me and finally talked me into going over there. So 7 years, not in Europe. And I wasn't on the streets in like 5 minutes. I got people running up to me. It was crazy.
That is so insane. And is it like a football game there where they're drinking and partying all day getting ready for the race?
Yeah, I mean, it really ramps up like on Friday, like the Super G day, and then Saturday's just crazy, and Sunday as well. And we're there Monday night, like all the ski racers, because first training day is Tuesday. You get like 2 days of training, maybe a third, and then you have the Super G race downhill and followed by the slalom. But from like Friday, the place just swells up, and it's just crazy. Like, there's so many people there that they just keep the bars open all night, and there's no place for them to sleep, or they're on the streets partying, and they're out all day. And I get so many stories of crazy stuff. One that was pretty cool. I finished my inspection for the downhill. I'm trying to get through the crowd back over the Hahnenkamm Bahn, and Red Bull hooked me up with a full Rockstar bus. And I was like actually going over there to kind of just get away from everybody and get on the bike and watch some vid and get some food and stretch and then suit up to go to the top. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, hey, Rahlves, take a shot. He has a little keg on his back with like a hydration tube and opens his trench coat, and he's got like 10 shot glasses on each wing of his like coat, right? He pulls the tube and starts lining up these shots and some schnapps and all that. I'm like, man, I'm heading up, about an hour to go of race. Like, I'm not into that right now, but if you find me after the race, I'll take a shot with you. He's like, yeah, okay. And then like all his friends are around. They all like shoot those schnapps back. And after the race, the guy finds me. He said, you said you'd take a shot with us. I'm like, yeah, pour it out. Let's do it. But just guys are rolling kegs up to finish line. Now they've kind of like tightened it a lot more because that's a way for them to make a lot of money. And Gosser is like the king of beers over there. And the sponsorship dollars is insane. And so they have everything on lockdown. But now you'll just see a white covered slope at the finish line. It's pretty disgusting, but it's crazy. Like how many empty cans of beer are on the ground. And the Austrians, everything's so clean over there and so nice, but it's like the one time for them to let loose and just be like out of control, and there's no trash cans. There's not enough trash cans to take all the beer cans. I go over there now and host like groups of people and take them down the hill. And we were skiing down the side of the race hill to the finish after the race. And you're just like going through like just empty beer cans. And it's pretty sweet. You'll see like a pile of them, and just like come booking into it and then just throw it sideways and just spraying beer cans everywhere. And people are like face down, passed out in the snow. And it's an incredible party. I mean, I love just the energy there. And as a ski racer, I was just like, okay, these guys are here to watch something awesome. They're here to party. This makes me want to even throw down even more, to like put a good show on and not just to like have the chance of being champion there that day, Hahnenkamm Sieger, but give these people something to remember for the rest of their lives, you know. And I've crashed big there, and I've had some pretty sick finishes, like 7 podiums there in 5 years. So it was a good run.
Yeah, I think 2001-ish, where you get third in the Super G. You're on the podium there with Herman Meier. And
yeah, the downhill. That was a downhill race.
Herman Meier's on the podium there with you too. That dude is like the Schwarzenegger of skiing, it seems like.
Yeah.
He's a monster. I was actually a doping control escort on Vail 99. I had to take him for doping and a bunch of stuff. And just a monster. And they didn't test his skis or any of the boot height that they tested everybody else that I took, which was weird. But yeah, it's super interesting to me. I had Hans Knaus, Lasse Chus, Herman Meier, and Christian Meier. And Herman Meier didn't get tested like the rest of the guys, which was strange to me because he won the race and they should be testing everything that he did. But looking at a dude like that, he's a monster. And it makes me think of my doping control time. Did you ever worry or think about maybe other people maybe cheating and taking substances to be faster?
There's a lot of that talk going on. And I was good friends with Hans Knaus, and he was like the first Austrian ever talked to me and read the chair with. And so I ended up going over to his house for like a break during Christmas for like 2 days. And we're looking at old pictures, and there's like Herman Meier and Hansi. And Herman looks like the little scrawny kind of like kid, you know, and all the Austrians too. They're like, for sure he's done something. He just disappeared and came back like 5 years later, just a whole different animal. He was an animal, you know, but like he was out skiing everybody in every Super G on the bottom third. Like there was no chance. Like you could hang with him for the first half and then he just pull away because he was in incredible strength and condition, and he trained a ton. I'll give him that. Like he trained a lot, but there's some skepticism or some belief. Like it's just people going around talking about it. He definitely, you know, was aided by some other things in the sports science world. And obviously he had this like trainer that was from Eastern Germany and had a reputation of all that. And it was just, you look at him, it's like, it's easy to add things up. But you know what? I'm never going to like protest or brought it up with seriousness. There's always kind of like around a beer or two with some other like ski racers and talk about it and, you know, whatever. I mean, he really did probably get caught, but he's just so ahead of times.
Right.
It's like, whatever. I mean, I would never kind of like make a push, try and like go back to test results and all that. But
there's question marks.
Yeah, there's question marks. And I was second behind Herman a couple times and third behind him a couple times, you know, so could have had some better results. But the guy, he was intense, and we learned a lot from him. Like the Americans, they're going down to Portillo, Chile to go train for years. And then the Austrians, we started collaborating with them to train, say Colorado early season. I actually got on the hill in St. Anton before my world championship win in 2001 to get some training with the Austrians. And after I won there and Stefan Eberhard was second, Herman Meier was third, that was like a turning point because Bodie and I were starting to hang with the rest of the world, and we're beating up on the Austrians a little bit, and they're like cut ties with us with any training. But we started watching these guys, and we would go train like 6 to 8 runs a day. Then we go like lift, and they play a little soccer or basketball. And the Austrians, they'd train like 4 or 5 runs a day. They'd go right to the gym and spin on oxygen and taking lactate tests and being so tight with like their recovery program and how much they're expending. And they come up, and by the 4th day, they're just crushing still on the hill, and we're like dragging. You know, high altitude, you're at 11,000 feet. It's tough, you know, it's taxing. And my era on the U.S. ski team, really, like a lot of things changed with sports science. And we started being really focused on recovery and just a better maintenance program and focusing on quality instead of quantity. And if we weren't like with the Austrians, we wouldn't have got there that quickly, I don't think. But Herman, like all the other Austrians are down in the gym. They had such a big team, like their staff would go in the gym and take over all the bikes and get on the bikes. We come down to try and do some recovery and train. And the trainers on the bikes holding them for the Austrians. Mm-hmm. And like, hey, can we get on that? No. Like Steph's coming down. This is his bike.
Oh.
So we're like hanging out, waiting to like do our stuff. And then Eberhard comes down like 15 minutes later, and he just jumps on the same bike his trainer's on. We're just the second tier, you know, we just had to take the back seat to the Austrians every which way. So, but Herman, he was never down there. He had his own bike in his room. He'd be up there for hours. Who knows what he's doing? He was really anal about his recovery, but no one could match him for a couple of years on the hill. There's no chance. Like, he just outskied everybody, and physically was way ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
But it comes down to, like, you know what? You got to start finding edges wherever you can and an advantage. And we're in Kitzbühel. This is the year after I got third behind him and won world championships. And I'm going through the Bonamousefalle, which is, you come out of the gate, it's a left foot, right foot, first big air, land. This is like the upper section, the first 15 seconds. I'm down there. I always like being in the back of the pack for inspection, because a lot of the guys that go up front and stack up in turns and you can't really see the line that well. And Herman Meier was the same way. He liked being the very last guy. So I'm down there, kind of like close my eyes, kind of go over the top section. I'm going to hit those 2 turns where I'm going to trim some line off. And I just get sprayed so hard, like, you know, just snow down my neck, cover my goggles on my face, and I open my eyes, and it's Herman. I'm like, dude, thanks. You know? And he's like, whatever. Like, what was that all about? He's like, I didn't see you. Like, yeah, right, dude. I'm the only guy out here. You didn't see me?
So is he a dick?
Total dick, you know? Like, he would win. I would shake his hand, look in the eyes, and he would, like, smile. And then if I beat him ever, he would come up just to shake the hand for media and look away. Just no respect. And so it makes you kind of want to beat a guy like that more.
Yeah.
And he had an advantage over a lot of other, like, competitors, just the games. And so he sprayed me right there. You know, I'm like, I'm going to give it back to him. I'm not going to, like, lay back. I mean, he's the best guy in the world right here, but he's still trying to, like, screw with me, trying to get in my head.
He's like a bully.
Yeah. So I go through the next section through style hung, and John was like, okay, get going, man. You got a lot more track to check. I'm like, yeah, I'm just waiting for Herman, though. He's like, what's up? I'm going to let him get down there a little ways in front of me. I'm just going to give him a little payback. He's like, what happened up there? Oh, I just told him the story. He's like, yeah, man, hold back. Let's do it. Give it to him. So he's down there doing this thing. I come just nuking into the style hung and just see him on the road, just cover him and stop right in front of him. I'm like, good luck today, buddy. Just to kind of like show him. I wasn't going to let him get in my head.
Yeah.
I was never an instigator, but I always liked to have that little battle. And that kind of made me push more. So we had some other stuff going on that season. It was kind of like a back and forth. And then I could never really like talk to that guy until like after our careers were done. Then he actually was a little easier, easygoing kind of guy, especially after his accident where he almost lost his leg. He had a lot more of appreciation for his opportunity out there. And he changed as a person there, and it was more grateful and a better person, I think, because of it.
It's amazing when people have life-altering injuries, how they become better people. It seems to happen with anybody that has one. They just have a new appreciation for life and everything around it. And it's a shame he was a dick, but it sounds like maybe that made him a little bit better. But 2002, you wreck yourself at Kitzbühel. You're not injured. But the year after your big crash, you have the defining moment of your career. You win the downhill in Hahnenkamm. And what's a moment like that like when you're in the hot seat and you're looking at times of people coming down? What goes through your head there?
Well, I mean, it's crazy emotions for sure. I mean, it was like the number one race I wanted to win in my career, over the Olympics, everything, for what it stands for and how treacherous it is. Yeah, I was third in 2001. 2002, I'm like, this is mine. I'm taking it. And I chipped off a little too much line inside on style hung and nailed the fence. And I was out. It felt like a dream, man. I couldn't believe it. It was devastating. And I'll just go a quick story on this because it's pretty awesome. Like, so I slam the fence, lose both skis. I'm sliding backwards down the cat road. And I'm like, this can't end. So I pop up on my boots and I'm like skiing on my boots, like still at 40 miles an hour, grab tuck, grab the bowl and just keep going for like 500 feet. And then bam, I catch my toes and just slide in my stomach. I'm like sitting there, like shaking my head, like, no way, this is happening. And then the guy brings my skis down and one heel piece is jammed. I can't get it up. And on the corner of this road, there's a little like hut where they store a lot of the fencing and all this stuff. And there's a few of the Austrian army guys there. So I roll up, I'm like, hey, you guys got a screwdriver or something to pop this thing loose? And they're like, yeah, give it to me. And I couldn't, get my boot in the binding. These fans on the other side of the fence right there, like, Rahlves, USA, still the best. Some Austrian guys all painted up, red and white on their faces at the flag, So I go over there, just like give some high fives, like, thanks, guys. Like, that one hurt right there. This stings. And like, you got another beer? And like, yeah. So I crack a beer with them, just shotgun it with these guys, throw the fence, like, oh, can you grab that? So not littering. Like, yeah, we got it. Thanks. And So I take off and I come down to each like coach and just tell them what went on. And I get to the bottom on Hausberg, which is the big jump that goes into the side hill traverse.
Okay.
And this Norwegian stacks it right there. So there's a course hold, and I'm talking to my coach Per, and he's like just as devastated as I am. I mean, these guys just live and breathe it. It's like my dad, you know, like you screw up, they land you. If you do great, they're celebrating with you.
Yep.
And he's like, just get out of here. This course holds. So I'm like, make sure it's clear to finish. I just want to run this bottom section, you know, and he's like, okay. So he calls on the radio, Phil, all clear for Daron. He's just going to rip it to the finish. He's like, yeah, it's all good. So I'm coming across the side hill. I'm like, screw it. I grab Bull and I just start nuking across the side hill, going in the finish line jump. And this is before they've cut it way down. So there used to be some decent air, but I come in and I just pop this thing as hard as I can. To this day, it was the biggest air on the strife. It was like one of those big Nordy jumps. I get my skis up to send it. You know, I wanted this for me, but I also wanted to do it for the crowd. I mean, people are out there watching. They want to see something rad. So I send this thing. There's no chance I'm going to pull this off on the landing. I have my head between my ski tips, trying to get my chest down. I was like 70 miles an hour on this jump. And I'm like, here we go. And I just lay it out on my side to take the impact. So I didn't want to land straight on my neck, my back. And just crash, explode. Ski comes off. My helmet comes off because I didn't have it strapped after I crashed. I'm sliding, pop up on one ski, come across the finish line. One ski, no helmet. And I'm just sitting there like, holy shit, I just survived that. But that was not a good move. And this guy comes down with my gear, and the main guy, Gunther Huara with the fist that runs the men's speed program, came out to me and just grabbed me by the shoulders and started shaking me, so pissed. And he's a big guy, big German guy. And I grabbed him by the coat. And I had like a little shaking match back and forth with him. And he was screaming at me, and I was screaming back at him, and he's going to find me, this and that. It was like totally uncalled for, really unsafe. I'm like, I got the radio call. There's no one in the way. And he lit up on me. I lit back up on him, and I just got out of there, like left. And then the next week we had a meeting, and he's like, I'm not going to impose a fine, but I was surprised he came back at me that hard. I know how much it meant to you. So this is a warning. Just don't do that again. And I had a smile. I'm like, thanks, you know, but you know how much it means to me in this place and all that. But that was like the year before I won. I was willing to take any risk to be fast there. And plus, since I didn't make the finish in that race day in 2002, I'm like, I still got to get down there and do something to just unleash some of this like energy and let people see something cool. It went from cool to hero to zero.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, standing on that podium and hearing Hahnenkamm Sieger and walking up as the best that day on the strife, it's untouchable. It was a really special moment for me in my whole life. And I could flip a switch, another gear there. In 5 years amongst Super G and downhill races, I had 7 podiums, which I always showed I was on my game, you know, and could just almost will myself be fast somehow.
Well, Daron, you know, at this point, I don't know if you'd be willing to do like a part 2 at some point, and we could record in like another few weeks and just get the rest of your career on tape.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I really enjoy talking about it, and I don't know if I get off track a little bit, but I think it's nice to like throw some fun stories out there, and that adds up to a lot of the time for sure.
No, it's awesome.
I'd be stoked to continue it.
But before we continue it, I like to end every show with something that I call inappropriate questions. So I am going to keep you on the hook for a couple more minutes. What I do is I get someone that you know to ask you 3 inappropriate questions. This time I went to the most famous bar in all of skiing, or one of them in Squaw Valley, La Chamois, the Chamois, and I talked to Junior, who owns it, and he came up with 3 questions for you. I'm going to grab my iPad real quick, and then I'm going to cue them up for you.
All right. Yep. Junior's a great buddy of mine. He's my best man at my wedding. He's been to all the races that I had some great days at in Kitzbühel and Beaver Creek. So we've had a lot of good times together.
All right. Well, here's question number 1 from Junior.
The first one we were thinking about is how many times he's had his shirt off in a bar and where.
So easy one for the first. Are you one of those dudes that likes to have their shirt off in the bar all the time?
It's not like it's my choice, but if it happens, like I'll run it. And yeah, it's a Londoner. It's like the biggest party on the World Cup Tour. And as a winner, they don't let you walk in on your own feet. They carry you in there, but you just get beer showers left and right, and clothes aren't really helping you out. So I don't rip my own shirt off. It gets ripped off by others. But yeah, it's a yearly deal.
How many times do you think you've had your shirt ripped off at a bar by other people?
Probably like 12 times, a full dozen times.
All amazing nights, I would think.
They turn into those, yeah. Not so amazing the next day, but while it's happened, they are.
Yep. All right, we're going to go to question number 2.
Hey, Daron, tell us about the time that you pranked all your wedding guests and your wedding party.
Michelle, my wife-to-be, we came up with a little kind of like, trick on the whole like wedding party. The deal was she was going to come in on by boat. We're on Tahoe. We rented this place on Lakeshore Drive in Incline. This crazy Mac Daddy like mansion out there, beautiful spot. And I had Marco Sullivan driving the boat. There's another buddy, and this girl actually went to high school at the GMVS, Nicole Drian, and she looks pretty similar to Michelle from a distance, same build and blonde hair. And she was in a wedding dress on the back of the boat waving the crowd. And Marco hit the gas and she fell in. So it was just a shock. Everybody like, we just need to break the ice somehow. And it was more like Michelle's like, I want to get my dad so bad. He's always like messing with us and just the prankster, we're going to get him good. But like all the moms and women like just were going crazy, looking at me, go get her. I'm like, she's like 500 feet off the shore. I'm like, I'm not going to swim up there. They can get her. It was just awesome. So it was a shock. No one really knew about it. And I didn't tell any of my buddies, and Junior's my best man, and didn't let him know. And we let it run for like, a couple minutes, and then the music started up and then Michelle started walking down from the house to the lake.
That is amazing.
That was a good way to break the ice, the wedding.
All right, and your final inappropriate question.
Hey, Daron, how many Audis did your friends wreck and ding up when you were on the team and you had to take the blame for it?
So first, did they give you free Audis to use while you were in Europe?
Yeah, I had a sweet deal over there with Audi. I'd fly into Munich, and there's an Audi forum, and you just grab your bags and walk straight up to like the Audi forum. They had this RS6 waiting for me.
Sick.
On the curb, just like throw my bags in there and go. So this one year, the RS4 came out, and RS is like their top performing car.
Yep.
550 horse, whatever. And the RS6 is sweet because it was like the grocery getter, like the full wagon. But the RS4 was more the sporty 4-door car. And they had 4 in Germany this time. They're like, hey, we got this car. Do you want to drive it for like 2 months? I'm like, hell yeah. And just mobbing around Europe in these, these cars are so fun. But a buddy of mine, actually, he was a producer of The Strife, the film that is on the Hahnenkamm documentary. I went to his house after racing Kranjska Gora in Slovenia. And so he was in southern Austria and stayed at his place. And he's like, oh, I want to drive this, like I drive like Porsches on the racetrack, this and that. And dude, we didn't make it onto the Autobahn, and we were flying off the damn road. And luckily, it wasn't a full total, but it just wrecked the whole front. And I'm just like, oh God, I signed this liability release and waiver that I'm the only one driving the car, responsible for it, and this and that. So that was tough because like I went to Bormio after that, and they had to drive from Germany to Italy, swap the cars, and I had to take the blame for it. And this is after I already wrecked another car on my own, pulling a dumbass move on like a U-turn on this like one side road because they hit road construction, went off in these fields, and I was like, I need to whip it around, get back the other way, and just pull this jackass move and got T-boned hard. And that was a full total.
Oh, so you wrecked 2 Audis.
So I wrecked one on my own, and the 4 RS4s in the world, I get one of them. I wrecked that one supposedly. My buddy did that one, but I had to take the blame for him. So I'm like, this sucks, like I still never told him that years later that it wasn't me. I just dealt with it.
Do you have to pay for it?
Luckily, no. Didn't have to pay a penny.
Amazing.
Yeah, he took care of both those cars, and I told him how sorry I was, and nope, sometimes it's part of doing business. Like, you're not the only one that gets a car and wrecks. I'm like, okay, that makes me feel better. But they're pretty cool about it. And then last year, I decided to take the family over to Europe for the first time, the kids. We did Wengen and Kitzbühel and Schladming, and I just decided to throw out and see how much leverage I still have with Audi, and got connected with the right person, and they gave me a car for 2.5 weeks this last winter. So still got a little pull over there, Mike, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that is nice. And you didn't wreck it this time, which is...
No. And I was like, this thing's coming back better than it was when I got it. I cleaned that thing so nice and buffed it out. I don't have any more chances. I got to be on my best behavior these days. I'm not one of those superstars out there throwing it down the mountain anymore. So you got to make sure I was bringing it back like top notch.
But the beauty of your career is you will always be a superstar over there. You won the downhill there. I don't think any other American ever done that?
No, it was Buddy Werner pre-World Cup, and he won down. But so, like, I give it to him for sure. I mean, he skied that track.
Yep.
But to this day, no. I know Bodie wanted it bad, and he was there and got second, but never pulled together. And I really hope that I'm not the only American. But I want someone else in the U.S. to do it. It is like the pinnacle, and I want others to have that same feeling. It's just out of this world, man. And I keep going back now. I've been going back since 2013 to watch the races, but also, in hopes that one of our guys like pops it and takes a win there, because I want to celebrate with them.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I would normally give a long outro, but we're going to do another podcast and we're going to finish your career because you mentioned Bodie. I definitely want to talk about him because that was a big rivalry and a whole bunch more things that we want to talk about. So thank you for now. And how about we do it again in, mid-August?
Sounds great, Mike. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Just fun to relive this stuff. And I got to give you props for how much background work you've done and knowing all the path of the journey I've been on so far. So it's cool talking to somebody that's educated and knows about the sport.
So that was part 1 with Daron Rahlves. And for some reason, I thought Daron would hold back on things a little bit, but that wasn't the case. And after listening to this, I'm surprised he's not more pissed off at Herman Meier for cheating. And while that's not proven, I listen to Daron and I see what I see and look at results, and it sure sounds like there could be something fishy with that, but we will never know, as I'm sure they're never going to go back and test samples. But whatever, it is what it is, and that's the first part of this podcast. We'll be back next week with part 2 with Daron Rahlves. At this point, I want to thank you for listening and ask you to do one thing for me. Review me on iTunes. It helps the show grow, I think, and if it doesn't, well, it sure makes me feel good and it's appreciated. If you have an iPhone, hit the podcast icon, search for the Powell Movement, tap my logo, scroll down to where you see the stars, tap 5 stars, and you're done. It's pretty easy, takes less than a minute, greatly appreciated as I said. Finally, I need to thank my amazing sponsors. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Sports, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.